Welcome everyone to the special Manchester 2035 podcast on becoming digital inside and out. I'm joined by a wonderful panel today. I've got Fiona, PJ and Katie, and we're going to chat about the big ideas coming out of the sprints. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself first properly though.
Yes, so I'm Fiona Devine. I'm Vice President and Dean of the Faculty of Humanities.
PJ?
Hi, good morning. I'm PJ Hemmaway. I'm the university's Chief Information Officer.
Great. Katie?
I'm Katie Jackson. I'm the Faculty of Humanities Officer at the Students' Union.
Lovely. So let's dive straight in, and it's a question about language. A sprint, what can people imagine when they hear a sprint? What have you been doing?
So we've been working at pace. We've had 3 meetings in quick succession where we have brought together a group of people from right across the university, and we've been working very intensely on some propositions that we'll be bringing forward to colleagues.
And another term people are going to hear a lot about in the next kind of coming weeks and months is around the leaps. So PJ, maybe you could explain to us what's a leap and what is your leap that your sprint was focusing on?
So a leap from a change in technology perspective is a major advance, rather quickly as well. Where we are as universities, we don't really want to be waiting 10 years to deliver on our strategy. So when we're actually looking at our leap, what we're going to be looking at is 1 and 3 year deliverables to do that.
Wonderful. And can you tell us a bit more about how the feedback so far has shaped what your sprint group has been doing?
Yes, so certainly. So myself and Patrick Hackett led 2 workshops on one university. That was the theme. And I would say that 2 things came out of that, 2 very strong messages from colleagues, which included great participation from academic and PS staff. So the first one was about how many of our kind of processes are really clunky and slow. We have a lot of manual interventions and so on. So we really do need to do and engage in a digital transformation of the university. So that was a really clear theme that came out from many colleagues. And then the second one is there's a huge appetite to be one university, and for many of those new things that we're all going to be doing together, to be doing things consistently, not do them 5 times when we can do them 1 time, and as I say, have consistent policies and processes and delivery plans and implementation of one kind right across the university. So those kind of themes have very much fed into the sprint activity.
So I know we're going to go into it in more detail throughout this conversation, but can you give a quick summary of, we've got one university and digital inside and out. So how do those 2 link?
So many of the digital processes I would hope that we'd be introducing will take a one university form. So we'll be, and PJ can say more about this, having digital platforms that we'll be using right across the institution, different applications and so on. So as I say, there is that consistency in terms of things that we do.
Brilliant. And I guess a key question people will have is why this leap? Like, what problem are we trying to solve? So Katie, could you help us understand that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, from a student perspective, it's, we have so many students. I think we're kind of edging towards 50,000 students at the moment. And, that means that not every student can be on campus all the time talking to a member of staff. We've just not got the capacity for that. So, that digital interaction that students have is so important. And I think that's why we have to have this digital transformation, just so that user-friendly, student-friendly facing stuff is a lot more kind of up to scratch. So I think that's like a key thing. And, we've spoken a lot about like personalisation of people's education. And, I think that becomes a lot easier when the technology can support that. So I think that that's like a really key thing for students, kind of seeing, I can go to this person and I can literally input, what career I want in the future. And then it's going to give me all the course units that I can take. For example, that's just an idea in my brain anyway. But, that's something that we could look at in the future towards 2035. And that's something that's really exciting. So, yeah, I think that's why this leap is so important.
Amazing. And PJ, I guess from your perspective, both for our staff, but also I guess in the wider sector, you know, what challenges are we facing? So why do we need to kind of make this leap?
I think one of the big challenges is we are now in 2025, and that brings with it AI, it brings with it data, but also it brings with it opportunity. So what I'm starting to see at the moment is probably one of the most ambitious digital agendas in higher education at the moment. From an opportunity perspective, I think that seamless experience for our students and our researchers in order to be able to do things once for them, give them an environment that they're not bouncing around different services or even different buildings. So if we can actually sort of bring it back to them and make that experience so much more better for them, personalised so that way they get to study, or if you're a researcher, you get to research and submit grants, and behind the scenes professional services, they get to help you seamlessly, so you really get to do what you need to do.
So my next question is around how did we get here? So, you know, we had 22 workshops on a variety of themes. We had 5,000 comments fed into you. How did you take that in the sprint groups and then turn it into these big ideas? How did that work in practice?
Yeah. So Patrick and myself got together to again lead on this initiative, and we decided to assemble people right across the university. So one university in practice already, and we were just thinking about all the experts that we know across each faculty, and sent out invitations to those colleagues. Actually, people also started volunteering themselves, which was fantastic as well. So we just said, yes, come on down. And it was very much a case, I'm sure you'd agree, wouldn't you, where we felt we had incredible experts in the room. Everybody wanted to share their knowledge. And yeah, in the rooms, there was just, across the 3 meetings, a lot of expertise was brought to the table. We all shared a lot of the activities in which we're involved in, as I say, bringing the feedback, as you say. And yeah, we had a team site. We put lots of material, shared everything that we were doing, and we're working in hybrid mode and all different things, and at pace, as I say, across those 3 meetings and in between meetings, because you know, they were a short pace of time and we had to keep the momentum up between the 3 meetings. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun, yeah.
But maybe a little bit stressful.
Yeah. And exhausting.
Fun and exhausting.
Yeah. Tempting and fun, yeah.
And Katie, the Students' Union and students more broadly have also been involved throughout this process and also been engaged on this topic. So could you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, so like the staff workshops, we had student workshops, you know, and a lot of them were run by Lexi, the Union Affairs Officer. And, you know, they were really, really key in kind of getting that student perspective of what's important to them digitally, because I think a lot of people, you know, see it and they're like, oh yeah, Blackboard, this, that, you know, but there's so much more to it than that they don't see. So it was really good for having that, like, because the student workshops were open to staff as well, so they were getting to speak to staff about kind of what their perspective was. And it was really key for just helping them to understand more and like really think big as well, because I think that we can sometimes be our own worst enemy and like creating barriers for ourselves in our heads. But that was really good for students to be like, yeah, this is something that I want. And it's definitely something that we can think about when it comes to the strategy. So yeah.
That's really great to hear. So just to say, the ideas we're about to hear, they are hot off the press. So I think you're still writing up some of the ideas coming out of the sprints, but can you start to give us a first indication of those big ideas that are going to help us make the leap to becoming digital inside and out?
Yeah, so as I said before, it is what I see as one of the most ambitious programs coming out for the next 1, 3, 5 and 10 years. So it's fantastic to be at the University of Manchester right now. So just in terms of some of the core ideas that are coming out are, again, based on the feedback that we've had. I look at those 5,000 comments that are coming into a funnel. It's made its way to the sprint groups that Patrick and Fiona are leading with. But at the moment, as I say, we're still sort of writing this up. What we're really seeing is a connected campus, and that's a seamless digital physical experience. We're looking at an intelligent network, which is data-driven with a real sense of belonging. And that's going to be underpinned by connected communities, bringing our cohorts of students together. Also, leading with intelligence. as I mentioned before, talking about AI and data, how we're going to lead into that. And then finally, and this has been really quite important to all the members of the Sprint group, it's an equitable digital university, a model for inclusive excellence. And that's something that's really underpinned where we're looking at.
So PJ, the title of your sprint was Digital Inside and Out. Sounds great, but what's inside, what's outside?
Oh, it's a great question, and that means different things to different people. For me, digital inside and out is the digital services that we're going to provide to our colleagues and our students. But in addition, in terms of how we come across to the world, how we come across to other countries, but also the region in terms of our innovation partners. If I start to dig a little bit more into digital inside, it's how we actually partner with estates. So it's how IT and estates co-author and co-create services in terms of our classrooms, our research spaces, our student residential areas into 2035. So it means many different things to many different people, and that's important.
And I don't know who wants to take this question, but maybe to all three of you, why do you think these ideas are going to make a difference? You don't have to kind of speak on all of them, but if you kind of pick out one and, just describe why that will make our university stand out by 2035.
Well, one of the things that underpins all the points that PJ has just mentioned there is the technologies, the digital processes will be an enabler in terms of reaching our strategic goals. The university has high ambitions, and we've got to create the infrastructure, the foundations, all the environment so that people can realise, being great teachers, great researchers. So that's something that we've also spent a bit of time on as well, isn't it?
It is. But if I could also come in on that as well, we've got some amazing partners outside of the university, specifically that are now moving to the Northwest. And, they are looking for us to essentially train and teach our students of tomorrow. They want to work with us in terms of innovation. And, I think that value add in terms of Manchester and the Northwest is just sort of second to none. So we've got a really ambitious digital agenda, but also it's about our students, our researchers, and where we're getting to for 2035.
Katie, from a student perspective, is there anything that kind of really stands out?
Yeah, I was just about to say, because I think what you were saying about this one university approach to the digital transformation, I think, there's this thing about, if we did want more distance learners, if that's something that we'd be looking towards in 2035, the Students' Union is then going to have to become somewhat digital as well. And I think we've spoken about this a lot, is how do we make sure that sense of belonging, because I think you mentioned that earlier, I think that's really key, because when you are a distance learner, you are going to have a different experience, but it's how do we make sure that you still get the Students' Union offer, but when it's digital? So I think there's stuff that we're working really closely in partnership, and that's something that I think would be really key. So yeah, I think that's what I'd say from the student perspective.
I think what's so interesting about this is hearing the ideas coming out of all of the different sprints. There's some real cross-cutting ideas there and themes that, you've mentioned around belonging, personalisation for our digital learners that, is also coming up in the kind of teaching and learning sprint. So I think that's really great to see how those ideas can kind of work together. In terms of, I guess, what's next for our staff, students and our wider community, what are going to be the next steps in terms of how they can engage with the proposals that are coming out of the sprints?
So this is very much part of the conversation, and we're in the second stage of the strategic planning process, aren't we, in terms of building up on those propositions. And it is very much a case now of, once we complete the sprint work, that we are going to go back out to the wider community and to get feedback on the ideas and help us to refine those ideas.
From the 31st of March, we are going to be in Nancy Rothwell building with a pop-up exhibition where people can discover all the big ideas coming out of the various sprint groups and also see how they kind of work together and how they're cross-cutting. We're also going to have a really great digital platform that people can use to feed in. So they can't make it in person, though ideally we want them to do both. There will be a digital feedback mechanism as well. So we're really keen that as many people as possible come along, whether that's staff, students or our wider community members.